Jim Duckett's life was looking up in the fall of 2008. He had been sober for 7 months, he was making new friends and getting involved with the church across the street, and he even had a girlfriend at the time of his murder. No one had anything negative to say about him. But just 9 days before his murder, Jim was the victim of a robbery, and this robbery seemed personal. On October 31st, 2008, just 9 days before Jim was murdered, Jim calls Catherine and tells her that he had been robbed.
He called me early in the morning, but it was Halloween night. He called me about 1-something in the morning and woke my husband and I, Tony and I. He was very upset, and he started yelling he had been robbed. And I, of course, I'm waking up out of a sleep, and I'm like, what? He said, I was robbed. And I said, what did they take? And he told me that the only thing they took was his jewelry, and he had it in it was like a cigar box, like a humidor. And he said, that's the only thing they took. And he said he had been working in his garage all evening, doing the custom-made cabinet. And when he went into his bedroom, he noticed it was gone.
Jim was working in his garage all day on a project. When he went back inside later that evening, he noticed a couple $1,000s worth of jewelry had gone missing.
Jewelry seems like the logical first thing someone would steal from a house. It's usually pretty easy to find, usually stored in a jewelry box of some kind or sitting out. But Jim's jewelry, it was in a cigar box.
A stranger stealing from Jim would have most likely looked right past the cigar box, looking for other things to steal, like electronics. That is, if this person was a stranger.
Whoever did it had to have known what was inside of it, because it wasn't a jewelry box. And that's the only thing they took. He asked me if I thought he should call the police then, because by then it's like 1:30, almost 2 in the morning. And I told him if that was all they took, just to wait till the morning just to call the police out there then. After he reported it, he came over after church on a Sunday. I don't even remember what day Halloween was then. I was laying on the couch watching TV, and he came over and sat down in the recliner. And he sat there, and he wasn't making eye contact with me. And he said, I'm going to get an ADT system. He said, I'm going to put in a security system. I don't know if it was like he was asking my permission or what. And I said, okay, if that makes you feel better. He said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to put a security system in the house. And I said, okay. And so he had it done within a matter of days. And of course, 9 days later, he was murdered.
In 2008, in Shelby County, there were 325 crimes committed. The vast majority were due to theft. Jim Duckett was the victim of 2 of those 325 crimes in 2008, as a victim of theft on Halloween night and then a homicide 9 days later. Shelbyville, which is inside Shelby County, is not a crime-heavy community. Shelby County as a whole has seen 36 total homicides from the years 2005 to 2020. 15 of those homicides occurred in 2014 alone. In fact, there were 7 whole years where the count of homicides was 0. 3 of those quiet years occurred between the years of 2005 and 2007, just before Jim's murder in 2008. For the sake of comparison, just 45 minutes away lies the city of Louisville, which is inside of Jefferson County. While Louisville is a much larger city, it still shows a very different trend. In 2008, when Jim was murdered, the same year Shelby County had 2 total homicides, the city of Louisville saw 73 homicides. Fast forward to 2020, Louisville saw a massive increase of 173 total homicides, and Shelby County just had 1.
It is important to understand jurisdiction in Shelby County, Kentucky. There are 4 different law enforcement agencies that can respond to a crime in Shelby County. First, you have the Kentucky State Police. Second, Shelby County Sheriff. Third, the Shelbyville Police Department. And fourth, the Simpsonville Police Department, another small town just a few miles down the road. The vast majority are handled by the Sheriff's Office in Shelbyville PD. However, in Jim's case, it was the Kentucky State Police who handled his homicide. In fact, They handled both murder cases in 2008 for the county.
So why is all of that important? Post 12 of the Kentucky State Police handles 7 counties inside central Kentucky. In those counties, there were 16 total murders for the year in 2008, which seems like a lot at first glance. However, the Kentucky State Police only handled 4 of those 16 murders in 2008, with the rest being handled by other law enforcement agencies nearby. 4 homicides in a full year means their detectives would have had the benefit of time and resources to work Jim's case effectively. But have they worked this case effectively? There are many who are at the very least frustrated with the investigation, for many different reasons.
The night I found Jim, I remember sitting there, or standing there, I don't even know who told me. Probably the PR state trooper said, it'll take a while to make an arrest. So in my little naive mind, I thought 2 days. And I said, okay. And he said, yeah, it'll be about 4 months. So I'm like, literally, I went 4 months. And I mean, it was like shock. And he said, yes, 4 months to make an arrest. And I was like, oh my God, 4 months comes. And I'm working at another job site. And I remember calling the detective, literally in tears. And the detective's asking me, Catherine, are you okay? And I said, no, I'm never going to be okay. My whole world's changed. My world is upside down. And you told me it'd be 4 months there would be an arrest. Well, we're at 4 months. Where's my arrest? When can I feel safe again? When can my children ever feel... When can my son walk to the bus stop and not feel like a murderer's someone's going to come kill him? Now I'm at 14 years. Where's my arrest? Why are they still walking the streets? Are they married? Do they have kids? Do they have grandkids? Why are they still out there? I don't have my brother. Alex doesn't have his father. My children don't have their uncle. Why am I still sitting here asking? Why are the police not working this case?
Halloween night of 2008 wasn't the first time Jim was the victim of theft. In October of 2006, just 2 years before the robbery on Halloween night and subsequent murder 9 days later, Jim had to call the Shelbyville Police Department to report that his debit card had been stolen. Jim had given his debit card to an acquaintance to get some snacks from the store and bring it back to the Shelbyville motel to eat on while they drank. Keep in mind, this was in 2006, during one of Jim's binge drinking moments, before he got sober. It is also important to note that most often when Jim would drink, he would drink alone. This was not one of those times. Later on, when Jim checked his bank account, he discovered that his acquaintance that he trusted had instead withdrawn a total of $912 from his account from various ATMs. This person also wrote several checks to Walmart on Jim's account, totaling $254.59.
Jim's so-called acquaintance was found guilty of the following charges: criminal possession of a forged instrument, 2nd degree; burglary, 3rd degree. He was found guilty by a grand jury and was ordered to pay restitution to Jim, totaling over $1,000.
This person was actually still paying restitution to Jim in 2008 when Jim was murdered.
Interestingly enough, monthly payments were made for 5 straight months in 2008, then suddenly no payments in September or October. The next payment, November 10th, 2008, the day after Jim's murder.
After doing some additional research and background checks, it turns out that the same person who took Jim's ATM card in 2006 and stole money from his account also robbed a local coin laundry store in Shelbyville within the same week. It seemed like this person was desperate for money. We tried reaching out to the owner of the coin laundry in 2006, the one who witnessed the robbery. Her name was Joyce, but she has sadly since passed. But we did talk to her son Stefan, who remembers his parents talking about the incident.
Here's what she told me about it. She came to work that morning. She always came to that front door to come in. And she said when she got to that front door, she seen a guy trying to get that change machine out of there. right there in the front. And she said she kind of got stuttered, stepped a little bit because my dad was home still in the bed. So she thought about calling him. Then she said, well, heck, he ain't going to get down here in time. So then I think she called the police.
We then asked Stefan if he remembered if the alarm system was disarmed during the robbery.
I don't know about that. I can't vouch for that 100%. But it had to be because he was inside the building. I think they caught the guy, that the way I remembered my mom talking about it, that they caught the guy. Then it ended up going to court, or he got in trouble for something else also, I think, or something. She was scared. My mom was fighting cancer back in them days when all that was going on. Said it scared her more than anything because she come down the front door and there's that guy trying to get that change machine out of there. And heck, that change machine's heavy. Wasn't no one man going to move that by himself. I don't know what he was thinking. I can't really swear to it to be 100% sure, but I think he did run out the back door that morning. And they caught up with him later.
So what could a robbery in 2006 have to do with Jim's murder in 2008? Keep in mind that Jim was the victim of 3 crimes in 3 years. The debit card theft in 2006, the robbery on Halloween night in 2008, and the murder 9 days later. The only one of those cases ever solved was the debit card theft in 2006. Remember, Jim's acquaintance was found guilty of that debit card theft, and that crime had some strange similarities to the events that transpired on the night of Jim's murder.
Coincidence number 1. The night of Jim's murder, the suspect or suspects stole Jim's truck and drove past several banks to Jim's bank in Shelbyville and withdrew money from his account.
They passed several other banks, but yet they chose Jim's bank. ATM footage from that bank was unfortunately blurry because of an issue with the camera lens. The only things that could be made out in the video, which will be posted to all of our social media accounts, are Jim's truck and the driver that was seen on the footage covering his mouth with either his hand or possibly an article of clothing. Again, the video is extremely blurry. Go watch it and let us know what you think.
In the theft case of 2006, Jim's ATM card was stolen and used at an ATM, just like the night of Jim's murder.
Coincidence number 2. The night of Jim's murder, his newly wired security system was not armed. In the coin laundry theft that occurred in the same week as Jim's ATM card theft in 2006, a security system was disarmed. How do we know that? Well, it's because the offender's close relative wrote a voluntary implicating statement recalling that the guilty party was bragging about disarming that system before walking away with a large sum of money. In that same statement, we learned that the individual was spending large amounts of money on snacks and candy, and he was bringing them back to their room at the Shelbyville motel. The same Shelbyville motel that Jim, this acquaintance, and his relative would occasionally meet up to drink before Jim got sober. And finally, coincidence number 3. Jim's death was violent, and it showed signs of significant rage, with the main form of assault and trauma coming from being stabbed multiple times. That acquaintance who took advantage of Jim's ATM card had a bit of a past. As a matter of fact, all the way back in the year 2000, just a few states over in Illinois, this person was convicted in the 6th Judicial Court of Illinois for something other than theft. They pled guilty to aggravated battery with the use of a deadly weapon. What kind of weapon? It was a knife. The victim of the battery was stabbed 6 times, including in the torso and the throat.
I gave him the names, and I asked him if he thought that's who it was, and he wouldn't make eye contact with me.
Catherine here is talking about this acquaintance we've been talking about from Jim's past. The same one who was found guilty in the debit card theft of 2006. She's recalling a time she asked Jim who he thought robbed him on Halloween night in 2008. This conversation likely happened just hours before Jim's murder.
In his truck coming back from Louisville, I asked him, I said, do you think, and I said the person's name again, do you think he's the one that robbed you? And he just kind of made this expression on his face, and the expression pretty much told me yes. And then I did find out later he had told his son that that's who it was, who he thought it was that had robbed him.
Like we pointed out earlier, this acquaintance wasn't a complete stranger to Jim. Jim had a past with him. Jim was still collecting restitution from this person for the debit card theft back in 2006. Back when Jim would binge drink, he would always drink alone. But Tony and Catherine recall this one time when that wasn't true. This was before Jim got sober.
It was always solo, except that was really the first time.
Shelby Motel.
With Shelby Motel.
They were taking full advantage of him because he had money.
Mm. I mean, I walk into the room and Jim was passed out on the bed in his underwear. And there was just people all over the room, beer cans and pizza boxes and everything. And then pulled up in my truck. Did I let Jim... He was in the process of buying, but the title was still in my name. So they pulled up in the truck while Jim was passed out. They pulled up to the hotel. That was the first time I ever met. I yanked him out of the car. I said, get the fuck out of my car. And then I got Jim and I took him home. The hotel manager had called and said,
they're going to end up killing him.
They're going to end up killing him. You need to come get him.
He said, Jim, you cannot come back. You're barred from here. And he looked at me. He said, they are going to kill him.
Shortly after Jim's murder, Catherine had an interaction with a family member of the acquaintance. This family member is the same one who wrote a voluntary statement back in 2006 in the coin laundry theft case that we touched on earlier.
So kept calling my house wanting his fishing poles because he had left him at Jim's house. So I didn't want him at my house. So I took his fishing post to the house. I got out of my car and he come running out the front door. I give him the fishing post and I start talking to him. I said, they're accusing of it. And he goes, yeah, I do. I said, do you think he did it? And he wouldn't look at me and he goes, sat there for a few seconds. He goes, nah. I said, you're right. He ain't smart enough to do something like that. And it made him mad. It didn't make me, it pissed him off. He goes, well, he did it before. I said, yeah, I know. But the guy lived. Like I said, he ain't smart enough to do it. And it made him mad again. He goes, well, like I said, he did it before. And I said, like I said, he ain't smart enough to do this. I had a detective that literally asked me what my brother did to get himself murdered. Absolutely infuriated me. Once they read the files, it took them 2 weeks to read it, they called and apologized to me. You tell yourself that this person had to be doing something. They had to be doing something illegal or something bad. They had to have been involved in something to be killed this way. Jim did not deserve to be murdered. He was a good person, and he was my brother. He was Alex's father. He was Rebecca's brother. I want justice. 14 years is too long.
This is an active investigation. Some names have been changed, but the details remain the same. This podcast will withhold certain information critical to the case, so as not to impact the integrity of the investigation being carried out by the Kentucky State Police and other law enforcement agencies.
If you or someone you know have information related to Jim Duckett's murder, please call Kentucky State Police Post 12 at 502-227-2221. Or you can text a tip to 67283 by typing in KSPTIP in the message field. Leave a space, and then enter the information that you have regarding the crime. The messages are then sent to a separate service where any identifying information is removed to keep it anonymous. Follow us on social media to keep up to date with information from the podcast and any other details that could come out related to this case.